Good evening. I'm Kelly Wright. Thanks for joining me as we spend this next hour together. I do hope you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family because you matter. My opening observation tonight, motivation. We need to have motivation to make it through the day. In other words, encouragement. You see, the first step towards getting somewhere is to decide and realize that you're not satisfied and you're not going to stay where you are. The secret of change, my friends, is to focus all of your energy, your prayer, your might, your spirit, not on fighting the old, but on building upon the new, fighting the good fight. And certainly in the midst of this pandemic and racial divide and political divide, we do need to be motivated. And so tonight, we want to focus on motivating you. We're going to call it Motivational Monday. And we're going to hear from one of the top motivational speakers in the world because we all need to be in the game, keep our minds actively engaged in how we do better and not grow bitter. And those are my opening observations. Well, as you know, tonight is the opening night of the RNC, and we'll be focusing on that tomorrow when we recap it with a lot of people who will be analyzing politically what goes on throughout the RNC, just as we did last week with the DNC. It's the Republicans' turn. We'll be hearing from them and talk about that all this week. But tonight, we're going to focus on motivation because we need to keep moving forward. We got to keep it moving. Regardless of what we've been through with 170,000 deaths due to the coronavirus and the disruption to our economy, we have got to lift ourselves up. And we do that through faith, hope, and love, and encouraging people and inspiring you. The thing about this show, yeah, we give you information, we give you insight, we give you political analysis, but we also talk about your spiritual health, your motivational health, your inspiration. And so tonight, we devote that to a good dose of inspiration from none other than Les Brown.
As you think about your goals and about your dreams, you challenge yourself, become a risk taker. You hold the vision of what it is that you want to achieve. You practice the principle of OQP, only quality people. Dr. Dennis Kimbrough said, if you're the smartest one in your group, you need to get a new group. Surround yourself with people that you can learn from, people that stretch you, people that will challenge you, people that will help you to begin to soar and take you to a place within yourself that you can never go by yourself. Let us say together, it's possible. I can live my dream. It's necessary. Yeah, see, if you're casual about your dream, you will end up a casualty. You've got to decide that it's necessary, that you're going to make it happen because you're going to have some resistance. You're going to fail your way to success, as I said. Things will catch you on the blind side. And so you have recovery power. And the key is to keep moving.
Welcome back to the program. So joining me now is someone that I've known for a number of years. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him in the past, but more important, I've had the pleasure and the distinct honor of sitting in an audience when he has spoken. And if you have not been in touch with Les Brown in a personal way, once you hear him speak, you've been touched. And as I like to say on this program, you've been righted, ignited, and united to keep spreading love, freedom, and peace. When you talk to Les Brown, you're talking about a man who ignites that everywhere he goes. As a keynote speaker and leading authority on achievement for audiences as large as 80,000 people, Les Brown energizes people to meet the challenges of the world around them. He skillfully weaves his compelling life story into the fabric of our daily lives. And God knows we need to hear more narratives about hope. And the thread is forever strengthened, touting why you can't afford to be complacent and to aim high, achieve, and actively make an impact on the world. And he's doing that. Les Brown, welcome to the Kelly Wright Show, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's a plum-pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege to be here with you. It's been a minute, but we're back up and here again. Thank God for that. We're here because of his grace and mercy.
Yeah, his grace and mercy has kept you a mighty long way. You're looking good, man.
Thank you. And you know something, man, I tell you, I'm so glad to be able to talk with you. You realize I have not, I think since the last time I saw you, and it's been several years, this perhaps has been only the second or third interview that I've done with an African American. All of my interviews are done with people from other walks of life because the primary focus in our culture is entertainment, sports, entertainment. But when it comes to mind transformation, there's no interest. And so I'm just glad to be able to share some time with you. And I want to thank you so very much because of your commitment, because of your determination to provide a program that can help to transform and reshape people's lives. I'm here with you. And so I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. You know, the last time you and I talked was in Tampa, Florida, and it was all about transforming people's lives then. And really transformation, Les, as you know, and as you've been telling people for many, many years, transformation comes from renewing one's mind. You're still doing that virtually. Tell me about what you're currently doing.
Well, I have created something called the Power Voice System. I'm teaching people one-on-one on how they can create attention. Attention is the new currency. How to attract attention with your story, how to create an experience with your attention to transform an audience individually and collectively with your story. Because when you speak, people are asking, who are you? What do you have? And why should I care? And how to direct attention once you have held it and once you got it, so that you can impact your bottom line, increase your sales, or be able to make a point, be able to make a greater impact. And so that has been very fascinating. And to do it virtually, I've been, as I think about it, I've spoken Morocco, Germany, South Africa, and I'll be doing that again today, and Iraq. And I've been doing this in the last 4 or 5 days. So I do around 3 to 4 virtual presentations a day. The computer eliminates, as you are aware, geography. So the possibilities of where you can speak and the lives that you can reach are just unlimited.
And we'll be back with more of Les Brown after this.
Pursuing your dream and you're going after something that's beyond your comfort zone, magical things happen. Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has entered the heart of mankind what God has in store for you when you challenge yourself to go for a big dream. Why? Because in order to do something you've never done, you've got to become someone you've never been. And when you challenge yourself, when you become a risk taker, Viscott said, if you're not willing to risk, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't become your best. And if you can't become your best, then what else is there? I like what Helen Keller said, life is short and unpredictable. Eat the dessert first.
What do you see as being the most pressing need in this age of COVID-19, racial division and political division?
Well, the most important thing is the way a city, a county, a state, or a country function. It's a result of the culture and the mindset. So when you think about right now where we are, the worst epidemic in our lifetime, and the chaos and the stress and the uncertainty at the top. When a fish dies, it stinks in the head first. So there's a trickle down negative impact, particularly on people of color, because of systemic racism, because of when you look at the increase in domestic violence, the increase in gun violence, the increase in incarceration, the increase in millions of people losing their homes, being foreclosed on, being evicted, all of that collective stuff. It drives people crazy. In order to navigate that, you have to have a strategy that's going to impact the collective thinking of people and to transform their mindset so that we can adhere to a African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. And so when we look at all the stuff that's going on now, the most important thing we can do is have a strategy to stabilize ourselves. Because when you're living in a culture that's designed to hold you down, designed to destroy your sense of self, and it's stressful, and it's very uncertain and unpredictable, that it's mentally unhealthy. And so you're going to see a lot of behavior that's dysfunctional and people operating out of a level of insanity unlike we've ever seen before because of the meltdown, because of all the things that's going on under the coronavirus. It's going to take it to a whole new level. So our mental stability, mental resolve is number one of what we need to achieve right now.
And, you know, Les, we're in a political season of upheaval. It's the election season. It's the presidential election season. There's all kinds of politics going on. You were no stranger to politics going back to your days. That was just 2 years ago, right, that you ran for office.
I used to be a state legislator in Columbus, Ohio, back in the day.
So back in the day when you set off to go into politics and you actually won, you beat all the odds to win. And to the political landscape that's out there today, with so much vitriol and so much nastiness on both sides, in the time of this coronavirus pandemic, I'd like to say that the better angels should prevail, but politics being what it is, this is going to be a bruising campaign. How should people brace themselves for this?
You know, one of the most important things we can do now is to anchor ourselves, to handle the things that are coming at us. You know, just regularly, if you look at things as they were before the coronavirus, suicide increased in our community over 32%. And so when you look at now, it's doubling with gun violence, and a lot of children are being shot with stray bullets as well as adults. When you look at, there are people who've decided, I don't want to live like this anymore, and taking their lives. And so you look at all the dysfunctional behavior, having a strategy to collectively impact using public service announcements and programs of this nature and seminars and workshops and masterminds that will help to create a new type of group think that will decrease the level of unconscious self-loathing that we have being a part of this culture, to increase a sense of self-love and appreciation where we turn to each other rather than on each other. And three, that we go from worrying to being warriors. I read something that Benjamin Franklin said that I adhere to and believe strongly. He said, nothing will ever change until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are affected. And so when you put that next with Frederick Douglass, who said that power concedes nothing without a demand. So there's an active role that we are to play, but there is an active role for the largest society to play, because when something happens, there are the perpetrator, there's the victim, and there are the witnesses. And the question is asked, well, which is worse? And the worst is, of course, is the witnesses, because at any time, the witnesses could have stepped in to stop it. So you've got people who didn't even believe the police brutality existed, but now because of the telephone, now because of George Floyd, they're saying, hey, this is wrong. And so there's some people from all walks of life of good conscience and decency and morality saying, no, evil prevails when good men and women do nothing. No, I'm becoming involved in this. I'm going to be a part of change as opposed to part of the problem.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'd like you to stay with me after the break. I want to come back with more of Les Brown, the master when it comes to motivating people, but he's had to motivate himself throughout his own life too, in order to be able to give the way you receive, and I'm talking about I'm talking about me, everybody who's ever been in his audience and received from him. We'll talk more about that and about how we move forward as a nation, as a world, understanding that there is motivation, there is encouragement. Never let go of that flame of hope. Back with more of Les Brown after this. And so through your programs and through your many books, as well as your motivational speeches all around the world, that change has to keep going on. Are there other people coming up behind Les Brown to be future Les Browns or duplicate what you've been trying to do?
I'm glad you asked that question. Absolutely, man. We have so many. We learn, we earn, we pass it on. And that's what I'm doing now. When I came into the speaking industry, there was no one that looked like me. And it took me 3 years to earn my first million. But more importantly, from that time to this time, which I've been doing it for 51 years and speaking in over 50 countries, that reaching millions of people, I had no idea when I started out that I would be where I am right now. And I say to people, if you got a story, if there's something you want to do, you want to make some impact, don't wait around. One of the things, my new book is called You've Got to Be Hungry. And I break up hunger, and the N stands for now urgency. I remember when Michael Jackson said after waiting several years, this is it. It's my final concert. And they spent millions of dollars on marketing and promoters and stadiums. And as we know, he never got a chance to perform. So in that section of the book, I talk about now urgency. Dr. Miles Monroe out of the Bahamas, he and I were planning on having breakfast. We were in South Africa speaking across the street from each other. We put it off. And shortly thereafter, he was killed in a plane crash. Wayne Dyer, he and I were supposed to do a PBS special for public television. We put it off, and he died in his sleep. And so I say, we want to live with a sense of urgency. We can't get out of life alive. We don't know how much time we have here. And so we want to do, as George Washington Carver would say, do what we can where we are with what we have, and live with a sense of urgency to do the things that we can do to create a better place for our children tomorrow. There's some things we're grappling with now. I was dealing with that 50 years ago, 1975, September the 22nd, I was fired for editorializing against police brutality in Columbus, Ohio. I was on radio then. A policeman beat a Vietnam veteran while he was holding his 4-month-old baby. And I editorialized about that. It was unprecedented that you would do that. And those two cops were fired. And then they fired me and brought those two cops back. And so, but here we are again. And so the telephone, what it's doing is exposing it. Now people are seeing stuff and saying, oh, they weren't lying. They weren't making this up. These cops lie. Yeah. These guys are supposed to serve. They're not serving. They say, well, there's some good cops. Well, if you see an unlawful act and you look the other way, then you are complicit. Then you are encouraging that kind of behavior. So we now are in this place where we have to be mindful, and we want to be concerned, but not consumed. We want to be mindful of what's going on, keeping social distance from people and the refrigerator. And be concerned about how we comport ourselves when we're stopped by the police. Be concerned about what do we do now? Over 50 million people have lost their jobs, and there are people who are looking for a check to help them to pay their mortgage note and not get evicted. And now they've lifted the restrictions on that. So millions of people are going to be foreclosed on and evicted. And millions of people are saying, what do I do now? 47 million people, according to the Department of Labor, will be replaced by artificial intelligence. And so there are people looking, saying, what am I going to do now? I mean, I'm 75. And so if I did not have a strategy, I would be out looking to get a job at Walmart. Not that there's anything wrong with that, or McDonald's flipping burgers, because nobody's looking to hire a 75-year-old man. But I have 5 children, 5 boys and 5 girls, 10 children altogether. And the Lord said, be fruitful and multiply. I took him seriously. And so I got 15 grandchildren and I got 4 great grandsons. So I'm working now to secure their financial future. I'm working now, the business that I've created that they are now a part of, they can leverage my name. God said to Abraham, I'll make your name great. He didn't say I'll make you a great man. I'll make your name great. Yeah. So I'm building and giving my kids a name they can take into the future, working so that my name will be an asset to them and not a liability, and give them the ability to create their own future, be able to make their lives recession-proof and be able to make their own mark.
You're a legacy-minded and a kingdom-minded man. When we return, we'll talk to more about Les Brown's life, growing up, how important is family, that and more after the break. Welcome back to the program. So I'm talking to Les Brown, the master motivator, and someone that I've had the pleasure of knowing. We have some friends in common, Dr. Willie Jolly and the late Dr. Miles Monroe. You know that Miles and I went to college together at Oral Roberts University. And the one thing I didn't do was listen to Miles when he said, you should come to the Bahamas, man. And he kept telling me back then when I was working in radio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, he kept asking me to come to the Bahamas. And when I finally made it to Nassau, Bahamas, and saw how he was living and where he was living, I thought, I should have listened to you.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Man, he was a great man. He and I went to Belize together on a little plane, and it was flying just above the telephone lines. And when we landed, we got down there and he spoke and we came back together. When I got off the plane and he started laughing, he said, what are you laughing at? He said, you peed on yourself. I said, I sure did. Man, I was just so scared. I didn't know what to do, man. But he was a great guy. He said, rob the cemetery of your dreams and your gifts. Don't allow the cemetery to take your talents. And, you know, 90 would have said that the majority of people die at age 25 and don't get buried until they're 65. Mm-hmm. They take their talents, their abilities, their dreams, their leadership, their voice, their story to the cemetery. And his philosophy was live full, die empty, and don't allow your past to determine your future. But when I was born in Liberty City, I'm here because of 2 women. One gave me life, the other one gave me love. God took me out of my biological mother's womb and placed me in the heart of my adopted mother. And so when I think about being born in an abandoned building with a twin brother, being a foster kid, then adopted, being labeled educable, mentally retarded, and put back from the 5th grade to the 4th grade, and fail again in the 8th grade, I had no idea that a gentleman by the name of Mr. Leroy Washington, with very much a personality like yours, Kelly, who challenged me and interrupted my vision of myself. How people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. And he said, young man, I want you to go to the front of the room and work this problem out for me. I said, oh, sir, I can't do that. Why not? I'm not one of your students. Look at me. Yes, sir. Go and do it anyhow. And the other students started laughing, saying, he's Leslie. He's got a twin brother, Wesley. Wesley is smart. He's DT. And he asked, what's DT? He's a dumb twin. And I said, I am, sir. And he came from behind his desk. He looked at me. He said, don't you ever say that again. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. And on that day, he interrupted my story I believed about myself by being called the dumb twin reflected in my grades. And that day he created an experience that gave me a vision of myself beyond what people thought about me, what they called me, and helped me to get on the path of getting in touch with this Les Brown that you now see. All of us need, I believe, somebody in our lives, Kelly Wright in our lives, that can take us to a place within ourselves that we cannot go by ourselves. Sometimes we need to have someone who will believe in us until our belief kicks in.
It's so true. If we don't believe in ourselves or learn to understand that the greatness of our nation begins in the homes of its people, when you say that, you've got to ask what's in the home. And if home is where the heart is, then you've got to ask the question, then what's in your heart?
Yeah.
And it seems to me what was placed in your heart was the greatness that God already gave you, but you had to discover it to really plumb the treasures of your heart to realize that gold was there. And you begin mining it. And now the rest is history because we all know the name Les Brown, and it personifies the greatness in people. So for that, Les Brown, I thank you for understanding and having the courage to go out and mine those raw minerals that's been in your life and then passing it on to others.
Thank you very much. My mother has been my hero. I feel like Abraham Lincoln has said, all that I am and all that I ever hope to be, I owe to my mother. And Mama, as she covered the ground she walked on, she adopted Wesley and I, my twin brother. Then she took in 5 other children. She raised 7 altogether. And Father's Day came around, Kelly, we bought Mama a Father's Day gift as well. I used to be on radio in Chicago, and I would have events for fathers, and I'll say this is for fathers who provide and for protect this event, and for mothers who serve as fathers, because Mama, she served as a father too.
Yeah, I know that well, my friend. My single parent mother still, even though she's not with me, I can still hear her teaching me and talking to me, and especially getting on me when I step out of line, or if I fall so far that I'm flat on my face. She was saying, "What are you doing? Get up." Just get back up and do it again. You know, I want to come back and I want to talk more about where we need to be in terms of Black America, and how do we take the same vision quest of putting hope in people's lives to the young Black men and women on the streets of Chicago and all throughout our country that perhaps have missed it because no one took the time out like our single parent moms did to tell us there's greatness in us. Back with more of my conversation with Les Brown. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. And if you want more of that, trust me, you can find him just about anywhere all over the internet and every place else. Make sure you go out and get his books. We'll be back with more of Les Brown after this. Welcome back. So we're having a stimulating conversation and a real heart-to-heart conversation, brother to brother. Les Brown talking to me about his life, and it's such an exemplary life that we all can follow through the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, and the shortcomings. And you've been prepared for a battle, my friend. You're battle tested, and you've been through it, and you're still standing on top. And that's because of your faith. How do we apply that to our youth in this country, in particular, our Black youth? And the reason why I want to focus on that is because I know you've mentored youth. I've mentored youth. And the one thing we see in Black youth, boys and girls, is promise. And yet they come up against a system of racism, or they come up a system that causes them to have defeat. Talk to me about that and what we can say to our youth in Black America.
We had and still have 2 viruses before the corona that's been deadly.
HIV, hood-infected virus, AIDS, addiction to incarceration and death syndrome. If we don't change the mindset of our young people, if we don't teach them how to become effective communicators, if we don't teach them how to develop relationships beyond our community, because this is a global world, if we don't teach them how to dress like a prospect rather than a suspect, if we don't teach them how to use technology to control their own personal economy, we will always be having this conversation. The civil rights movement was about access. I remember something that Jackie Robinson said that governs my behavior. He said, don't level the field, just let me on. I'll level it myself. We have access. That's major. Is there racism? Absolutely. According to the Federal Reserve in St. Louis, just 2 weeks ago, they said stunningly, wasn't stunning to me, stunningly, a white high school dropout creates 3 times more wealth than a black college graduate who graduates in a lot of debt. Okay, a white high school dropout makes 3 times more wealth. So the racism is here. We know it, documented. Systemic racism, it's a part of the process in the fabric of this country. This country showing itself to who it really is. What's incumbent upon us? Find a way to win. We got to find a way to win. We have to be extraordinary in order to be considered average. There's a book that's called Average is Over. We have to look and have the kind of determination that immigrants have. My new book called You've Got to Be Hungry, and the subtitle is The Greatness Within to Win. What do you mean by that? Immigrants have a 3 times greater chance of creating wealth, buying a home, and having their own business than the average American. Why? When they hit the ground, they're running. They're not sitting around watching television or going to see something that's funny and just waste that valuable time being a spectator. Out of this pandemic, there will come millionaires, billionaires, and witnesses. And so the money is not left to planet. There's all type of opportunities here. People say opportunity knocks on every door. No, opportunity stands by silently waiting for you to recognize it. And so now what we have to do in this time, in this space where we are, stony the road we trod, bitter the chesting rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. Just think, 2007, Time magazine said, the computer is a person of the year. Why? Because for the first time in the history of the planet, we have e-commerce. We can have a global business on your computer or your phone, and you have access to information. That's unprecedented. This is an incredible time. Crisis means in the Chinese language danger, but it also means opportunity. And so this is a time that we need to look and take stock, self-awareness, begin to look at ways to break the cycle of self-hatred that caused 95% of Black men to kill other Black men. We have to look at and make up our minds and develop the hunger to reduce the child abuse, the suicide rate. When I was a kid, it was unthinkable that a Black person would kill themselves because we were afraid of dying. Now it's common. Okay, come on, give me a break. We have come through this place. We've come over a way that with tears have been watered. We've come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. Man, we are the children of the ones who would not die. That's why mental resolve is very important. Next thing is mastering at least 3 core competencies that allow you to increase your value. John H. Johnson, with a loan of $500 from his mother, he said, there's no defense against an excellence that meets a pressing public need. And so when you develop your mind, when you create multiple streams of income and create collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships, You make your life recession proof. You now have fortified yourself. You now can build a life that will outlive you, because you can't do it by yourself.
Right.
You've got to have collaborative, achievement driven, supportive relationships. You got to have relationships with people that's smarter than you, people that can open doors for you that you did not see. You're exposing me to an audience today. Out of this could come some partnerships. During this pandemic, I finished my book, You've Got to Be Hungry. I have 23 different companies that I've started and that I have to pass on to my children and to my grandchildren. So this is a time, we're in a cocoon, that we want to spend this time not being warriors or watchers, but being warriors, fighting for what we want and being creative and innovative and expanding our vision beyond entertainment, rap, and sports. And that there's so much out there in this world that we haven't taken advantage of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talking to Les Brown. I call him the master motivator. There's none like him. When we come back, I want to hear what his final thoughts are for this broadcast, and we'll have him come back to the show because we ain't done yet. We got a lot more work to do. So we'll be back with more of Les Brown right after this. Welcome back to the program. So listen, I hope you're enjoying the conversation as much as I am, and I hope you're learning from it, from Les Brown. Beyond motivation, Les, you've had to live through a lot of challenges yourself, and step by step, you kept the faith. Tell me what it's like for you to have that faith in God to help you overcome the adversities that come your way.
You know, somebody asked me the other day, what's the difference between a motivational speaker and a minister? Ministers preach the gospel about Jesus. I preach the gospel that Jesus preached. They sell the messenger. I sell this message. Man's belief in God is measured by his belief in himself. When people who experience healings from Jesus, he said, thy faith has made thee whole. And so I'm here because of God's grace and mercy. I am a 27-year fourth stage cancer conqueror because of God's grace and mercy. And I believe that God is in the midst of this stuff. But we must work. We must be like Mary McLeod Bethune. She said, pray as if everything depends upon God, and work as if everything depends upon you. Commit thy works into the Lord, and thy thoughts should be established. And all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. And so it's about being willing to commit yourself. Find what is it that's in your heart. Where your heart is, there your treasure is. Find ways in which you can monetize that. You're not born to work for a living, but to live your making, and living your making will make your living. And find a coach. Michael Jordan said, hey, I couldn't be here without Phil Jackson, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Muhammad Ali said, I'm the greatest, but he never won a championship without Angelo Dundee. And so we all need somebody with a trained eye, somebody who has experience, who has accomplishment, and who can lead us and take us to a place within ourselves that we can never go by ourselves. Coaching is very important. And that's why now, for a limited number of people that are serious and are hungry, I'm working with them. If there's some that's listening to us, all they have to do is go to the website, IamHungryLesBrown.com. IamHungryLesBrown.com. They can order the book, but we will get their information and follow up with them. If they put your name in there, Kelly, Babelli, Babing, Bing, Benelli, then we'll know that they got the right hookup. And send
Make
me a
sure.
copy.
It took me back to my radio days, and it was more than just Kelly Wright. It was Killer Kel out to make you well. Oh, I've enjoyed this. It's like catching up with you and just having you on this program. Don't be a stranger here, but before you leave, You've put out a lot that's in your heart. But now let me drill down a little bit further. You're 75, you're leaving this legacy for your family. What else do you want to deposit into this world?
My goal is to train 700 voices of hope. In the beginning was the word. Nothing happens until it's spoken. Death and life is in the tongue. Why do I say death and life? Because we speak more death than life. And to train them how to create an experience. If you look at where we are now, the average African American does not know the president of the NAACP or the Urban League. We knew when Benjamin Hooks was there. We knew when Vernon Jordan was over the Urban League. We have a tremendous vacuum right now. And it's time for all hands on deck. Mm-hmm. It's time for people of conscience to step up and do what you're doing now. Operating out of the thinking of George Washington Carver. Do what you can where you are with what you have and never be satisfied. I believe we're here to live a life that will outlive us. And my goal is to help people to develop the hunger to do the things today others won't do in order to have the things tomorrow others won't have.
Thank you, my sir. I love you. We don't tell each other that enough, but I truly love you and want nothing except the best for you. God bless you. Les Brown here on the Kelly Wright Show, and he'll be back. Don't worry about it. But in the meantime, you make sure you check him out. Go get that book. Go sign up for his program. And in addition to that, when you make it successfully, make sure you give him some credit. God bless you. Bless.
Thank you. God bless you as well.
We're back with more of my final word after this. Welcome back to the program. So I want to thank Les Brown for appearing on tonight's show and giving us a special dose of motivation. Certainly we could use that in these troubling times of today. And there's something that he used to always say, and he still says it as a matter of fact, there is greatness in you. I believe that. So I thank each and every one of you for watching and taking time out of your busy schedule just to watch and understand that I believe you're great and there's greatness in you. So spread it around and keep spreading some love, freedom, and peace. Tomorrow, we're on the campaign trail, RNC, happening all week long. Be sure you keep it right here on the Black News Channel to get all of your day's news and information about the RNC. Until then, God bless you all. Good night.
We're all united on the love train. Get on board. All creeds and colors, my sisters and brothers. Get on board on the love train. Woo-hoo! Yeah. It's all right. Just give it time. Keep on marching on. Keep on being strong.